I want to welcome all of you who are sitting in the audience and those who are viewing online. And so at this time, the format that the program is going to take is that we're going to have brief remarks from our panelists, right where they are sitting. I think the last time we had all three on stage was at our meeting in Cutler Hall, where all three did a fantastic job in laying out the case and promoting Tobago's autonomy. And so this evening they're here again to answer questions. The format is that they're going to have a few minutes to bring remarks on the areas that they would have touched on in the last meeting, and then the floor will be opened for us to ask our questions. So ladies and gentlemen, we have with us this evening the MP for Tobago West and Minister of Sports and Community Development, Mrs. Shamfa Cudjoe-Lewis. We also have with us the MP for Tobago East and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for gender and child affairs, Mrs. Ayanna Webster-Roy. And we know this man in the middle, no introduction necessary, but our political leader of the Tobago Council, Senator Ancil Dennis. And so at this time, I want to invite to speak very briefly to us, MP for Tobago West, Mrs. Shamfa Cudjoe-Lewis, to bring brief remarks for us. You can stay there if you so desire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hearty good evening extended to each and every one of you. We gather this evening to go through the provisions or all that we have to look at as it relates to internal self-government for Tobago. This evening, I think the conversation should be more about going through. No? Testing.
There we go.
Okay, better.
There we go.
Better. Okay, so once again, a hearty good evening to each and every one. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is safe to say this is all business. This is all our business. We have been deliberate about this journey as it relates to internal self-government for Tobago for a very long time. I remember being in attendance at the National Convention, I think it was in 2015, when the People's National Movement made the matter of internal self-government for Tobago a matter of the PNM's business. And we decided that we are going to develop that policy not only from a party perspective, but once we get into government, we're in opposition at the time of that convention. And we said to the people, once we get into government, this is going to be a priority matter for us. So from 2015, when we assumed duties as the government of Trinidad and Tobago, to this date, that has been a #1 priority for us in the government. In 2016, the Orville Delano London administration and the Tobago House of Assembly passed a motion in the THA with unanimous support from all sides. Well, at that point in time, I believe we had no opposition in the House. Yeah? And after having consultations, over 42 consultations throughout Tobago and in Trinidad also, from 2007 to 2016, with the last or the final large consultation being held in Signal Hill with over 600 persons voting in support of the work that we had done over the years. We decided that we are going to send this document, send the Tobago's position, where we as Tobagoans speak with one voice to central government, because we know the only way that we can have the laws changed in our favor is through the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. No matter how much we argue among ourselves, have discussions, shout across the waters, laws are made only one place, in Trinidad and Tobago. That is the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And as much as we strongly believe that the Tobago House of Assembly should be given lawmaking powers, the only way to get that done is by having the legislation changed in the Parliament. And that is a part of what is being proposed, what is before a committee of the whole now in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. You could jump high, jump low. There is no way around it other than to do the necessary work in the Parliament and get the support of not only the government. If it's one thing this country and Tobagonians can bet on, it's the support of the People's National Movement. However, this change in legislation requires a 3/4 majority. And in the lower house, with 41 seats, we would need 31 votes. We, the government, the People's National Movement, we have only 22 votes. That means we have to convince, Tobagonians have to convince a good 9 opposition members to vote in favor before we can even get to the upper house or to the Senate, where the total is about 30, yes? And you have to get about 21 or 22 votes. With the government having only 15 spots, that means you need to convince 6 opposite, yes, or independent. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's not only a PNM fight, it's a Tobago fight. And that is why we had taken the decision many years ago to operate from a place of Tobago first. We as Tobagonians coming to one position, one accord, and speaking to Trinidad, speaking to central government, convincing our colleagues or peers or family members or friends across the waters that this is the Tobago position and therefore we should support it. No other time in history, when we look at this journey or this battle for internal self-government and more autonomy for Tobago, have we ever seen so much consultation, where we have gone the length and breadth of Tobago and the length and breadth of Trinidad, making the document available to citizens, having conversations with citizens, going through clause by clause. I remember being a member of the Joint Select Committee, and there is not one comment that was submitted by any citizen or anybody contributing to the discourse that was not considered, reviewed, contemplated, considered, discussed, deliberated by the Joint Select Committee. So every single comment, every statement, in addition to the wide consultation, I know that there is no other time in our history that we have had the privilege and the opportunity to engage international experts, lawyers, technical persons from the United Nations, from other countries that had similar experiences, like St. Kitts Nevis, the Attorney General of St. Kitts Nevis, the Premier of Nevis, and the list goes on and on and on. We locally, from the CPC to the different lawyers in their different corners, real estate agents, Reggie Dumas, God rest his soul, you name it, Tobagonians weighed in from far and wide. When we closed off in April of 2021, we placed the document in the public domain so that everybody would have an opportunity to review, to contemplate, and to ask their questions as we prepare to go out to do another set of consultations as the Joint Select Committee. 2 weeks after, we made our way to Tobago, and on April 30th in 2021, we met with stakeholders from Tobago, from the Tobago House of Assembly to the Business Chamber. We invited them all to come to the fore. And then on the 1st, which was the Saturday, we invited the general public to come in and have the conversation. Then we opened up and allowed Trinbagonians from far and wide. We made the documents available at KFC, the library, the port, the airport, at the offices of your MPs. Wherever you name it, we had the copies there. there were videos online to allow Trinbagonians the opportunity to access the document and to weigh in. So we then went to Parliament and got to the stage of committee. At that point in time, we knew that we didn't have the support of the opposition, and there are many who said, why didn't you take it to a vote? Maybe they would have voted. But if we had taken it to a vote, we would have lost the research. And if that vote wasn't passed, we would have lost the research and lost all the work that was put in, and we would have had to start all over again. Ladies and gentlemen, from 2007 to date of consultation and drafting and crafting the legislation, that would not have been something wise for us to do as a government. So we are now at committee stage, a committee of the whole. We are done with the work of, we've completed the work of the Joint Select Committee, brought it to the Parliament. The Parliament has adopted the report of the Joint Select Committee. And the Joint Select Committee is made up of, is a committee, a joint committee, as it says, of selected people from each house. The government side, the opposition side, the lower house, the upper house, and the independents. So we have spent good time meeting. In the last session, we met over 22 times, crafting the legislation, getting the advice, bringing in international persons to weigh in via the internet, have them sit in and be a part of the conversation. So to those who are saying we need more consultation, there's always going to be somebody who feels like we need some more consultation. We could consult another 10, 20, 30 years and never close the works or never end what we are doing. That would not be wise, because you have the benefit of the members of Parliament who had been a part of the research, been a part of the Joint Select Committee, and this parliamentary term is about to come to an end. We don't know who the next set of parliamentarians will be or what their positions would be. A matter of fact, when we first started the Joint Select Committee, you had persons like Clarence Rambarat on the committee. He's no longer a member of the Parliament. You had persons like Ramona Ramdial on the committee. She's no longer a member of Parliament. So times have changed and parliamentarians are turning over. And you just don't know who you're going to get next. I hear those opposite in Tobago, those who are leading in the assembly, but opposite to us as a national government, saying, let's get the 2 Tobago seats and we are going to give Tobago internal self-government. If you have any sense in your head, you know that that is utter foolery, because it takes 41 votes. With only 2 Tobago seats, you need 31 of those 41 votes. Of those 41 seats, you need 31 persons to say yes. 2 seats cannot carry you. You understand what I'm saying? In the lower house, in the upper house, 2 seats cannot carry you. And this is not only a conversation of Tobagonians, or because this affects not only Tobago development, it affects national development. What is interesting is how far we have gone and how much we have been able to convince Trinidadians to agree to what we're asking without any major pushback. Yes, a matter of fact, when we brought the conversation, when we brought the debate to the House the last time, interestingly, the opposition, UNC, started saying, you have not spoken to Trinidadians enough. And there's need for more consultation with Trinidadians because you are taking from us to give Tobago more. So I must commend the Prime Minister for making this matter a priority, and members of government. It's interesting because I remember when Kamala Prasad Bisasa brought her bill with no consultation. I think it was what year was it? Around 2012? 2013, and just in time, 5 days before the THA election, there was no consultation, there was no saving of the work. There was no coming back after that. So they were in power 2013, 2014, 2015. And they never brought back the matter to the fore. We didn't get to where we wanted to be in 2021, and here we are again, remaining committed to the cause and trying to deliver on our promise. And it's not only about the PNM's promise to the nation, it's about making good on the work and delivering on the dreams and aspirations of every Tobagonian. And people who are TPP, what are the other ones? PDP, IDA, all the others, right? As long as you're a Tobagonian, this is your business. You could support this and then go back and vote your party. Nobody's stopping you from being a part of your party. We have to put Tobago people's business first, because at the end of the day, this would redound to the benefit of every Tobagonian. No, what we have before us right now is better than anything that has ever been offered to us in the past. And we may say, we sent down to Trinidad that we want X, Y, and Z, and the bill has fallen short in this way or that way. That is because it's a conversation. It takes cooperation. It's a marriage between Trinidad and Tobago. When you go into a marriage with somebody, you don't get all you want. There has to be some compromise, because you're taking some from one to give more to the other. And you have to get, it's about cooperation, it's about conversation, it's about compromise. So to say, if we don't get exactly what we want right now in one fell swoop, we don't want nothing, we don't want anything at all, I think it would be foolhardy, especially considering the work that all of us have put into this journey. Yeah? So we are at a serious turning point in our history, and I think we have a duty and a responsibility to do right by all those who have fought in the past for internal self-government for Tobago. And this vote or this support for internal self-government, whilst it's about us, it's more so about our children and what we are creating for them socially, economically, so that they can live a better life. And we can do what we want to do as Tobagonians as it relates to our development. What is interesting and what is also beautiful is if you want to know what the committee had considered, you can know, because this information is available. Every single piece of advice from every legal person, the UNDP, all of it is on the parliamentary website. And for those of you who are pretending that you're seeing it for the first time, it has been there since June of 2021. A matter of fact, since April of 2021. So for those who are saying, we need more time to consult our people, what were you doing? 2021, 2022, 2023, now we're in 2024. This reminds me of the whole Sandal scenario, where Watson Duke and his minions had said, when we come in, we will bring Sandals, just not now. The thing is that we have done the work, and this is the best that this parliament has to offer, after consulting people from different sides of the divide. So anybody outside now saying, not now, later, it would be a selfish move. It would be unwise to do so, because we know what we have now. And you may not have a prime minister that is dedicated, that is fearless, that have the belly and the grit to bring this type of legislation and get all his members of parliament to agree on the government side, and then convince some independents and so on to agree to get this thing this far. Because I remember at Joint Select Committee when we were working on the percentage for the allocation, there are those who pull out their calculator and say, well, if they're asking for 8%, then that would mean 8% for two constituencies. That means 92% is left for 39 constituencies. 92 divided by 39 is 2 point something. So why must they get 4% and we get 2 point something? To get this far with that kind of thinking, I say, let's give it our best shot and try to get what's before the committee of the whole passed and continue the journey. And as the document, it's 758 pages, the explanatory document on the parliamentary website, the report from the committee. It gives you all the explanation that from here we will continue to add and add, because you won't get everything right. That's what law is about. That's what development is about. That's why there is a parliament. We come back and we change law and we improve to suit the time, to suit what's going on in our development. So I think that the time is now. There is no better time to get this done, especially considering the work that we have put in from 2007 all the way to date. So I think that's where I'll end my introduction, and we'll look more at all the different provisions as we go on later tonight. Yeah?
Thank you, Minister. Let's put our hands together for MP Tobago West and Minister. You know, a true foundation she just laid out as to how we got here, where we were, and how we got here. This time I want to bring MP Ayanna Webster-Roy into the conversation very quickly as well, so that she can give her brief remarks. MP Webster-Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll hear me? Not hearing. Okay. You'll hear it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask a question. How many of you in here would like to see your children achieve more than you would have achieved? Show of hands. Or your nieces, your nephews? Right? We all want to see our children achieve more. Why is this important for children? Why is this important for Tobago's men and Tobago's women? Why is this important for Trinidad and Tobago on the whole? Now, I recently came back from a conference in Colombia. It was the first coming together of ministers around the world to treat with the issue of violence against children. And I remember one of the young presenters on the closing day said, children aren't just the future, we are the present, we are the now. And they need to have a voice and an opportunity to shape policy. When I reviewed the bills, and I reviewed it not from a legislative perspective, not from the perspective of a member of parliament or even a minister, when I went through the bills, I looked at it from the perspective of a woman and as a mother. So I want to discuss with you how, from the perspective of a mother as a woman, we would benefit. How, from the perspective of an average Tobagonian, we would benefit from all the proposed changes that would come from these bills. And I had a conversation with my colleague today on the flight coming up, and she said, Ayanna, I don't think we're getting any support. And I said to her, Shamfa, I ain't get that all is lost feeling as yet. I said, I'm not getting that gut feeling that all is lost. I said, I'm still living in hope until that final vote. I still have that gut feeling that things could turn around. And I said, try things will turn around. We are seeing more and more where Trinidad and Tobago collectively, Trinidad and Tobago has been trying to establish better policies, better programs, a better framework nationally for our nation's children, recognizing that the children of Trinidad and Tobago are the ones to take us into a better place, a better future, a better society. And there has been concerted effort across the aisles. When we put out policies and programs, you would often hear voices on the opposition bench speaking, but then there would be the few who would speak in support. And because I strongly believe there is this yearning amongst the Trinidad and Tobago population to set a better foundation for all our nation's children. That is why I haven't given up hope. I haven't given up hope that the bills will give us the opportunity to have a stronger Tobago Island government, one that would have the opportunity to establish laws and policies to directly impact the children of Tobago. And while our children and our communities will benefit directly, I often say, if something good is happening in Tobago, the ripple effects would transcend and reach out and touch people in Trinidad. And if something bad is happening in Trinidad, obviously we will be impacted in Tobago. So there is this national cry for a better society for all. I remember in preparing for the first round of presentation at Calder Hall, I would have come across some newspaper articles that indicated when Trinidadians were polled about this issue, the average Trinidadian stood in support of Tobago getting greater autonomy. The average Trinidadian, when polled, indicated they wanted Tobagoans to have the opportunity to chart their own destiny, to create laws to impact the people of Tobago, because the average Trinidadian recognizes that a stronger, better Tobago equals a stronger and better Trinidad and Tobago. One of the things that would have hurt me as an average Tobagonian, and I said recently to friends and colleagues, is that it's unfortunate that those who are charged with the leadership of Tobago today have turned the issue of Tobago's right to self-determination or quest for internal self-government and greater autonomy into a political tool. And some people have become political prostitutes. But the only thing is they aren't selling the body, they're selling Tobagonians' right to self-determination. And that is troubling. That is hurtful. Because I reflect on the words of Dr. Winston Murray in 1977, when Dr. Winston Murray addressed the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And he said at the end, he laid out 7 principles. And at the end of the 7 principles, he said, all we want is a piece of the action, no big thing. And when I talk to my constituents, when I talk to people in Charlottesville, in Lansamy, in Belgarden, in Mount Grace, in Sergeant K, when I talk to people in Tobago East, they're saying, we ain't asking for much, you know. We just want our own space, our own place, our right share to the pie. We want to be recognized within this unitary state called the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. That's all they're asking for. And that is what these bills provide, the opportunity for us as Tobagonians to stand side by side with Trinidad and progress together within the unitary state called the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to go through some of the things Dr. Murray said because it resonated well with me, and I'm sure it's going to connect with the people of Tobago. In 1977, he said, when he stood on the floor, permit me to read 7 principles of internal self-government for Tobago. It is all based on the principles of natural law, which is God's law, and the 7 principles are enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. The 7 principles are also enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. My countrymen from Canaan, from Egypt, a very significant name, Charleville and Speyside, have asked me to read these 7 principles, not only for this house, but for Trinidad and Tobago. 1, unity. By unity, we mean to strive and maintain control of our lands, our villages, in all areas of life in Tobago. 2, self-determination. To define for ourselves, speak and defend ourselves, instead of being defined and spoken for and defended by others. 3, collective responsibility. To build and maintain our community together and to make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together as Tobagonians. 4, cooperative economics. To build and develop our own businesses, places, stores, cinemas, brick factories, ice factories, etc., and to profit from them together. 5, other purpose, to make as our collective vocation the building and development of Tobago, our national community, in order to restore the former greatness of its people. 6, creativity. To do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it. And 7, faith. To believe fervently in Tobago, its leaders, its people, and the truthfulness and conviction of this national struggle to run our country without seceding from Trinidad, end quote. When you examine Dr. Murray's 7 principles, and when you interact with Tobagonians now in 2024, what Dr. Murray yearned for in 1977, and what the average Tobagonian is clamoring for in 2024 remains the same. And as Dr. Murray said, no big thing. We want a piece of the action. But you know what's the problem? Unfortunately, for some persons who have been placed in positions of leadership and authority, who have had the ability to influence the opportunity for us to get what we have been yearning for, they have used our desire, our demand, our request for internal self-government, for a stronger Tobago Island government with powers and authority to put laws and policies and programs in place to directly benefit the people of Tobago and ultimately the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Some of those who have been placed in position of leadership and authority have used this as an opportunity for their own personal gains. And Tobagonians must stand up and speak out against that. We have to do it, because if we don't, we're going to place our children and our children's children at a disadvantage. What the laws present now as proposed, they give us much more benefits than what we gain out of the Act of 1996. And aren't we thriving as Tobagonians now in this current context? Compared to some of the communities in Trinidad, we are thriving. So imagine with a little bit more financial allocation. Imagine what a little bit more power would do. Imagine what an island government with the ability to create laws for the people of Trinidad. Imagine the type of Tobago your children would inherit. And just picture it, a more stable society, a more just community, a better Tobago for all. And as I said at the beginning, if Tobago prospers, if Tobago is thriving, Trinidad and Tobago will prosper, and Trinidad and Tobago will thrive. This is not just a Tobago fight. This is a national fight. And I want to challenge every single Tobagonian to take up the mantle and use your voices for good. Use your power of influence for good. Too many times we stay silent and sit back. And after the fact we say, we coulda, we shoulda. But this is not the time for that. This is not the time for us to gamble on our ability and the opportunity for us to create laws to shape our island the way we want it. This is not the time for us to sit back and say, we coulda, we shoulda, when we know ultimately our sons and our daughters will benefit from what is proposed within these 2 bills. So I want to take this opportunity to call on every single Tobagonian man, woman, boy, and girl, and to call on those friends in Trinidad. The percentage that the newspaper said that are standing in support of this cause, to raise your voices and send a strong signal to those who lead in Tobago at this time, to join the People's National Movement on this quest. Join Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley and his members of Parliament who are lending their voices to the support of this significant, progressive piece of legislation. And for those persons who come from Tobago East, we know that we have the power to stand up and act. After all, it was because of the Belmana riots we became the unitary state of Trinidad and Tobago. At this point in time, I'm calling on Tobago East to stand up and use your voices for good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, MP. All we want is a piece of the action. Yeah? All we want is a piece of the action. And I think the pieces of legislation that are before the Parliament are more than just a piece of the action. It takes the Tobago House of Assembly and Tobago in a significantly positive direction that benefits not only Tobago, but Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite at this time the political leader of the Tobago Council, Senator Ancil Dennis, to bring his brief remarks at this time. Let's put our hands together.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone gathered here this evening. Good evening to the persons viewing this meeting online on the Facebook platform and on YouTube as well. It's a pleasure to share this stage with two distinguished women, Tobago West MP, Mrs. Shamfa Cudjoe-Lewis, and Tobago East Member of Parliament, Mrs. Ayanna Webster-Roy. Ladies and gentlemen, the People's National Movement is leading the charge when it comes to Tobago's autonomy. We are taking responsibility for this process. The government is supporting the two bills in the Parliament, and as I said before, we are guaranteed, Tobagonians are guaranteed the support of 22 members of Parliament in the lower house and 15 senators in the upper house. And 3 of those senators on the government side happen to be Tobagonians. So on November the 3rd, we had a similar, well, a different meeting. It was more of a political platform in Calder Hall, where we brought to the public information regarding the bills, regarding the process, and we focused particularly on the benefits of these bills to Tobago and to the people of Tobago and to the country by extension. We are here this evening using a different format, a town hall meeting, stepping away from the platform, and I'm going to try my best this evening to stay away from any pick-on and bossing of files and that sort of thing. And at some point in time, you, the people, will have an opportunity to interact with all 3 of us by way of putting questions to us concerning this issue of Tobago's autonomy. Let me also remind you that tomorrow at 1 p.m., there will be a people's caravan. And again, we are taking the opportunity to ensure that we spread the message of Tobago's autonomy far and wide. So the intention is to venture into as many communities as possible in Tobago, starting off in Crown Point, and we'll be making our way up to this part of the island all the way to Roxborough, and then we will go through the rainforest, the beautiful rainforest, down to Palatavere, Castara, Muraya, Mason Hall, until we get back into Scarborough. And we are simply using all our resources, all our power, all our time, all our energy and effort to ensure that we inform, educate, and edify the people of Tobago when it comes to Tobago's autonomy. And there is no other political party on this island and in this country that is more capable and more equipped and more suited to taking responsibility for this process. So I want to talk about 2 things. A bit of the history and the benefits to the people of Tobago, because I understand that not many people will read the bills. That is the reality. Maybe 5 to 10% of Tobagonians may really take the time to sit down and read the bills page by page. And therefore, as members of this party, it is important for us to as we communicate with the people of Tobago, that we are able to tell them the specific benefits and the ways in which this piece of legislation, or those two pieces of legislation in the Parliament, will change the lives and the livelihoods of the people of Tobago. So, in terms of the history, of course, the first version of a Tobago House of Assembly Act was passed in 1979, I think it was, or 1980, and we operated under that act for a number of years. Of course, in 1986, there was a general election, and the NER, and while there isn't an NER party at this point in time, we know that the ANR over the years broke off into several splinter organizations, the DAC, the TOP at one point in time, Tobago Forwards, PDP, and it is safe to say that the NER today is represented in the form of the TPP. So, after that general election of 33-3, it is important to note that in the Parliament at that time, the NER had a super majority, meaning they had sufficient votes, sufficient members of Parliament on their side in the majority to do anything they wanted by way of lawmaking. So they could have changed the Constitution without any support from the PNM, because the PNM only had 3 seats in the Parliament. At that time, it was 36. And interestingly, the people of Tobago did not benefit from any improvements in our situation. We remained under the Tobago House of Assembly Act from 1980. Then in 1996, that was when we got the first improvement, where Act 40 of 1996 found its way to the Parliament, and at that point in time it was the UNC in government. But interestingly, the NER won the 2 Tobago seats during that period, and they made a decision to join with the UNC and give them the 2 Tobago seats to form the government. And at that time, during that period that government was in power, we got some improvement with Act 40 of 1996. Interestingly, and we must note this, Act 40 of 1996, though it gave us some additional fiscal resources, it did not give the people of Tobago, and specifically the legislature that we elect, any power to make laws for the good governance and order of the island of Tobago. And it is very interesting to note that. And the reason I'm saying this is because when it comes to autonomy, and the word autonomy simply means the ability to govern ourselves. Yes, if you check the dictionary, you will find that the definition is very close to the definition of independence. But as it relates to government, autonomy is not the same as independence. And of course, we are fully aware that the people of Tobago, we are not asking for independence or secession at this point in time. We are simply asking for the opportunity to govern ourselves as an island. And that cannot be achieved, that cannot be possible without the power to make laws. And Act 40 of 1996, as approved by a UNC government in partnership with the NER, I think the leader of the NER at that point in time was a senior member of the cabinet in that UNC government. We got an Act 40 of 1996 that did not give us lawmaking powers. And therefore, we existed under that arrangement from then to now for a number of years. Until 2004, the Tobago House of Assembly, the PNM Tobago House of Assembly, led by the great Orville London at the point in time, embarked on a process to change our circumstances in Tobago, because we always felt that Act 40 of 1996 was inadequate, especially, as I mentioned before, since it did not give us the ability to make laws. When you examine that act, in order for the Tobago House of Assembly to make any law regarding anything right now, they must draft a bill, go to the Assembly legislature up at Jerningham Street, just overlooking James Park, for those who don't know where it is. That's the same place that Watson Duke and they marched around 7 times when we had the 6-6 tie. And they will debate those bills, and the bill is passed, and once it is passed, it has to go to the cabinet of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and then that cabinet gets to determine if it goes to the parliament. And then if it makes its way to the parliament, then it is the parliament that then has to debate and give support, which is similar to what we're trying to achieve now to get the autonomy bills passed. So the same parliament nationally will have to approve any piece of legislation to become law. And of course, the Tobago House of Assembly Act prescribes that it will be a Tobago law, right? So we do not have lawmaking powers. So in 2004, we had the John Prince Committee charged with the responsibility to consult with the people of Tobago so that we could continue this fight. Because we must note that we did not stop at the Act 37 of 1980. We did not stop with Act 40 of 1996. We continued to discuss the matter, we continued to ventilate the matter, and here we are again seeking a further change. So over those years, the John Prince Committee had several meetings across Tobago, consulting with Tobagonians, and following that process, in 2013, when the PNM won the THA election 12-0, a very interesting development took place. Ho Choi Charles, former Chief Secretary, the late Ho Choi Charles, reached out to the once again elected Chief Secretary at the point in time, Mr. London, for a meeting the same month of the election. Mr. London agreed and the gentlemen met, and coming out of that meeting, they agreed that in order for us to really achieve this objective of greater autonomy, especially the kind of autonomy that will allow us to truly govern ourselves, then there was a need for us to put aside our political differences, and they agreed that Mr. London will take off his PNM hat, and Mr. Charles will take off his, I think his party at the time was Tobago Platform of Truth. Platform of Truth, right? And Ashwood Jack decided to take off his TOP hat, Tobago Organization of the People, and we knew that by the month of February, by the time they had this second meeting, Mr. Jack pulled out of the arrangement, but Mr. London and Mr. Charles, along with Mr. Calendar and Mr. Neil Wilson and Rennie Dumas and Ingrid Melville and Senior Counsel Gilbert Peterson and several other well-respected Tobagonians continue the work, continue the consultations, continue the discussions from 2013 until 2016, where I was fortunate to be part of the assembly, that passed a bill, and that bill represented the wishes of Tobagonians. And I want to take the opportunity to correct a piece of misinformation. The bill that left the Tobago House of Assembly and that went to the Dr. Keith Rowley cabinet in 2016 was transferred to the Parliament untouched. Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley made absolutely no changes to the bill that came from Tobago, right? So Tobagonians are not to fall for the mischief and the misinformation that is out there, that the PNM changed the bill and the PNM tampered with the bill. The bill went from the cabinet in its pure form, unchanged, to the Joint Select Committee of the Parliament. And it was through the work of that Joint Select Committee that the wishes, they weren't necessarily demands, they were wishes, because we always understood that one, Tobago cannot give itself autonomy. It requires the Parliament. And secondly, in order to get any bill passed in the Parliament, it requires consensus, it requires negotiations, because there are very few pieces of legislation, especially meaningful legislation, that the government with 22 seats could pass on its own. So the bills went unchanged, passed in 2016 by the THA, to the Cabinet, to the Joint Select Committee of the Parliament, who worked on those bills. The Member of Parliament for Tobago West went through that process, so I will not repeat. But there were several matters to be discussed. Experts were involved in the process: maritime law experts, legal experts, energy experts, constitutional experts, all kinds of experts. Politicians from across the region were involved. They looked at the situation, and we came from one single bill to two bills, because we recognized that we needed one separate bill to establish the new governance structure for Tobago, called the Tobago Island Government, and a separate bill to make the changes to the Constitution. And here we are today. So quickly, what are the benefits of those bills? How will they change the lives of the people of Tobago? And the first thing is the money. These bills, or at least one of the bills, prescribes that the minimum allocation to the Tobago Island Government will move from 4.03% to 6.8% of the national budget. What does that mean in dollars and cents? I am sure you have been hearing the complaints of this Chief Secretary, Farley Augustine, and the excuses about the things they are unable to do. They can't pay gratuity, they can't do this, they can't fix the road, they can't fix the drains because they don't have enough money. Of course, they are traveling. And of course, they have enough to give contracts to their friends from Trinidad. But the last budget that was read by Minister of Finance, Mr. Imbert, prescribed that Tobago be allocated $2.59 billion. If the bills that are in the Parliament were the law today, then that allocation given last September would have been $4.06 billion, which meant that your assembly, your government in Tobago, would have had available to service the people of Tobago an additional $1.5 billion. Now, I can tell you, from a PNM perspective, what we would have been able to achieve with $1.5 billion additional. Right? For example, we had on the cards a farmland development program, which was a program aimed at developing several estates across Tobago to the tune of about $80 million. And that program would have placed lands in good, fertile locations with the available or with the required infrastructure in place, utilities, electricity, water, etc., to approximately 200 or so farmers. We would have been able to do additional housing developments. Currently, the housing list in the Division of Settlements is around 7,000 applicants. To date, this administration, for 3 years, have not been able to build any significant housing development, right? Turpin Bend in Roxborough, that is a critical, not Roxborough, Charlottesville, that is a critical project, $40 million thereabout. We require a marina in Tobago, that is going to cost a couple $100 million. Plymouth needs a proper jetty, Palatovia needs a proper jetty, Charlottesville Community Center. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some things that if the PNM was in the THA, we would have been able to do. If we were in the THA, Charlottesville people would have gotten a community center. The pavilion right down the road in Goodwood would have been completed. The indoor sporting complex in Backlet would have been completed. All those projects you see languishing now, we would have completed them. But we must understand that an additional $1.5 billion available for the government of Tobago to spend is going to redound to the benefit of the people of Tobago. Let's look at the development program. Typically over the years, the development allocation, and I'll look at the last 10 years, is most often between $200 million to $400 million. You don't get more than that. That's your development program. And for those of you who might be wondering, what is the development program? The THA gets 2 separate allocations. Recurrent, that is what you use to pay your salaries and buy your goods and services, paper, water. That is what you use to keep the government operating, to keep government turning over. That's recurrent. Development money is what you use to make things happen physically on the island. Your roads, your bridges, your drains, your community centers, your sporting facilities. Everything that you see happening in Tobago over the last 20 or so years, between 2001 to 2021, all those community centers. This community center that we are occupying now, development program. So that is what that money is used for. That money is also very critical to the Tobago economy, because it is through that development spend that we are able to engage dozens of contractors and business persons who will do work for the Tobago House of Assembly, and in so doing that work, they will create job opportunities for a number of Tobagonians. And I can tell you at one point in time, Tobago contractors were employing upwards of 2,000 persons on the island doing work for the Tobago House of Assembly. That has changed, and I've said many times in the public why it has changed, so we're not dealing with that tonight. But the point I'm making is that your development money is extremely critical to the economy of Tobago. It allows you to fix roads, build new roads, build community centers, build marina if you want to, build indoor sporting facilities, what we used to build, the massive cultural complex. All the development that you could think about must be financed by your development program. How will these bills affect Tobago's development allocation? So as I said, 6.8%, looking at the last budget, would carry it up from 2.59 to $4.06 billion. Now, of course, autonomy, these bills also allows us to get additional responsibilities. So you will need to set up additional divisions to discharge those responsibilities. For example, you will need a division of legal affairs, because you now have your lawmaking powers. You now have responsibility for some aspect of the registry and stuff like that. So you will need now a separate division of legal affairs. You may also need a division of public administration and maybe one or two other divisions. Now, of course, that is going to increase your recurrent expenditure from about $1.8 billion a year to, let's say, $2.5 billion a year. However, remember that your total allocation at 6.8% is moving to $4.06 billion. So even if your recurrent increases to $2.5 billion, you still have available for development $1.5 billion, just over that. Currently, we're only getting $300, $400 billion. So the bills will immediately give Tobago 3 or 4 years worth of development money in 1 year. 3 or 4 years is a term. So you're getting a term, a whole term worth of development money in one allocation. So don't let anybody fool you to tell you that the additional money is only to administrate the various additional responsibilities that we'll be getting. There is no way, even with autonomy, that Tobago's recurrent expenditure should exceed $2.5 billion. And that is a very generous figure. Now, if you intend to travel the world, and you intend to have a party and a fete every single week, and you intend to employ all kinds of unqualified people, paying them ridiculously high salaries unnecessarily, then of course it may exceed that. But any serious government serious about Tobago's affairs, under the new arrangement, should not spend more than $2.5 billion in recurrent, and therefore you have upwards of $1.5 billion available for development. More roads, more drains, more community centers if you want. Now the PNM built so many community centers, I'm not sure Tobago needs another one. More sporting facilities, you name it. We will be in a position to do a lot more for the people of Tobago. Final thing, and possibly more important than the money, is the lawmaking powers. I sat in the Tobago House of Assembly as an assemblyman for 9 years, from 2013 to 2021. For those 9 years, the legislature of the Assembly met once per month, every 4th Thursday. And every 4th Thursday, the most you can do, of course, you will put on your nice jacket, your nice tie, and you will put on your nice perfume, and you will go in there feeling like a big man, feeling like you're representing people. The most you can do when you go there is debate and pass motions. So, as an assemblyman, that's what I did for 9 years. Now, of course, you had your other responsibilities in a division as an assistant secretary. But as an assemblyman, all you did, or all you were able to do, and all the current assemblymen are still able to do, is to debate motions. Now, what is a motion? A motion is a document where you will take a particular issue to the legislature, you will lay out the issue, and then you will ask the House to resolve to do certain things. And that motion is supposed to act as an instruction to the executive to execute certain responsibilities. But that motion, or those motions, had very little impact, if any, on the people of Tobago. And in closing, I want to give you a first-hand experience. I was elected Chief Secretary in May of 2020, during the pandemic. In discussions with stakeholders from the tourism sector and the maritime sector, we determined that one of the critical issues that we needed to deal with in Tobago was the protection and the usage of the Buku Marine Park. Why? Because we had issues with touting, we had issues with, and we still have those issues, by the way, with boat operators operating unsafely, recklessly in some cases, placing the lives of both locals and tourists in grave danger. And we recognize that all it took was one accident, one mishap, to severely tarnish the reputation of Tobago as an island. So I decided as Chief Secretary that that is an issue that we need to deal with immediately. So of course, we got to work, we did the consultations, we met with all the various stakeholders, and we were advised that this requires lawmaking. Because a policy by itself, while a policy may instruct, there are no penalties for breaching a policy really. So in order to treat with that issue, we were advised that, look, the Parliament never put any legislation in place to treat with that, and maybe Tobago should look at establishing law. So we looked at the Tobago House of Assembly Act. We followed the Tobago House of Assembly Act. We drafted a bill, took it to the Tobago House of Assembly, debated the bill, passed the bill unanimously back in 2021. We are in 2024, and I have no clue where that bill ended up. The same happened to Mr. London when he was Chief Secretary, when they looked at a police bill to treat with policing in Tobago. That bill never saw the light of day. The bills that are before the Parliament will have established in Tobago our own legislature, where our 15 assemblymen and the councillors selected to be in that house will form a legislature with the president. And if we determine, whoever is the administration of the day, if they determine that particular issues, such as the marine park, that is only one example, there are several others, require lawmaking, then they can do that. They can draft a bill, they can take it to the House, support the bill, and once that is supported and passed by the House, all that needs to happen after that is for the President to give assent, and it becomes a law that can be effected on the island of Tobago. No need for cabinet, no need for national parliament. So from 1996 to now, or 1980 to now, Tobago, your assemblymen that you elect and that the taxpayers pay to represent us and treat with our issues here, from then to now, your assembly has never made one single law. The Parliament making a law how often? Every week? But the Parliament have their agenda. The Parliament's agenda is the national agenda, which is the national Parliament. And what are the issues engaging the attention of the Parliament? Crime, etc. So who is taking care of Tobago's issues? We must be in a position to take care of our own issues. And these bills will give us the lawmaking power to make laws for the good governance and for the order of the island of Tobago on behalf of the people of Tobago. And I will stop there.
Thank you. Thank you, political leader. I hope that after such very concise remarks by all three panelists, I'm hoping that we still have questions, right?